Welcome back to Gospel Chats with Ryan and Marshall and Keely, and where we like to sit and lean in to the amazing, beautiful truths of the gospel and ask our hard questions and push each other and all those fun things.
Yep.
That's what we do, right?
That's exactly what we do.
Okay, let's start. What do you want to talk about?
All right. So I had a student, actually. We've been doing a lot of people who've come to talk to us about the podcast, and he asked me, he's like, could you do an episode on the Lord's timing? And then he followed up with like, I'm not sure I like anything I've heard about the Lord's timing. So we may be in trouble by the end of this episode. We may have just continued on that path.
Just fed what already he doesn't like.
Exactly.
Like, sorry, but it's true.
Well, I think that's the question he has is like, what does it even mean? What are we talking about here? So I'm going to do what you always do to me, Ryan. So
you don't have to don't steal things from me. Let me just have my fun.
Oh, sorry. This is what you do. This is what I do. I forgot.
Yes. Stay in your lane.
No. All right. So, but here's my question. When you hear that, the Lord's timing, what do you think?
I think the synonym I would say is the Lord's will. I think that the Lord does have a plan. We've wrestled with this on what that means and what that doesn't mean. I don't think it means God has scripted out every single detail. I think agency is a very real thing. I don't think we're puppets. But I do believe that because his end goal for his children is exaltation, that he has to have things in place to accomplish his purposes, both cosmically and individually in individual lives. So I think he has timing for things like the restoration of the gospel, but I think he also has timing for something as small as me getting to the right place at the right time to bless one student with a note on their paper.
Okay.
A story we were just talking about before we started filming. Okay. Yeah, so that's what I think about is God's plan, God's will, and that it's a real thing, but it doesn't trump agency.
Okay, I like that. I like that a lot. And so push you on that. So with that, when someone says to trust in God's timing, how do you do it?
With a lot of faith. And I mean that, that and sometimes the answers can sound like trite phrases that we use, and they can. I guess it all depends on what we really mean by the answer is faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. Do I trust in promises he's made? That to me, being able to trust his timing is always linked to promises. Okay. Because if I can be laser focused on the promises, then when those promises come to fruition in my life isn't nearly as important, because I'm just convinced that the promises are going to come. And again, that's easier said than done, but that's the only way I know how to actually legit do it is I focus on Christ, I focus on my Heavenly Father, I focus on promises, again, that they've given universally to all of their, all of God's children, but also very personal ones I've received in patriarchal blessings or other priesthood blessings or other promptings and revelation. And I hold on, I count those as promises. So if I focus on the promise and not so much on how or when those promises are coming to pass, I have an easier time of letting go of current circumstances that are not as ideal or not what I want.
I love that, because I think that's a really fascinating thing. I love how you said this letting go and this idea of, okay, because what I keep hearing from you is waiting on the Lord often means long term. It's not happening right now and I want it to happen right now. I think timing of the Lord can also be, wow, I'm having this happen right now, and it's a blessing, but I don't want this particular blessing right now.
Can you quit blessing me so much?
Quit blessing me in the following ways, but which is a fascinating thing. And as I look at this idea of, okay, what does it look like? And I love your wording of faith. And I'll just throw this out. One of the words that's been popping into my head with this question is the question. The word that keeps popping in my head is wait. And there's the great phrase from David in the Psalms of wait on the Lord. Be strong and of good courage. Wait on the Lord. And so we're going to go somewhere not in the scriptures real quick. You're always taking us to like these deep thoughts that other people have in these books and things. And so it's my turn. It's not. It's an adventure novel. So
There you go. That's good.
My very favorite book of all time, Count of Monte Cristo. It's phenomenal. It's so good. You should all read it and make sure it's unabridged because it's just so good. But the final word, the final sentence of that book is this: my dearest, has the Count not just told us that all human wisdom was contained in these two words, wait and hope? Now, there's a whole lot going on there, and if you know the story, and spoiler alert, but it's been around for a couple hundred years, so just get over it. But you know, of course, the whole story is him working to exact revenge on the people who have wronged him. And he does it in certain ways where they sort of bring their own revenge about upon themselves. But he's basically proclaimed himself to be divine justice. And he learns through the course of this that there's no happiness in that. And he decides to leave his quest for revenge and find peace instead. And that's the idea, this idea of ending with like real life. Life really works when you embrace wait and hope. So I guess the question that I've sort of been wrestling with this thought from David, from the Psalms, of this wait on the Lord and hope, of this question of what do waiting and hoping have to do with each other and with the timing of the Lord?
Yeah. I like that question. I stumbled as I was thinking about this topic when you just said the Lord's timing. I started just looking at different verses in Scripture, and I stumbled across this one in Psalms 37:7 that I hadn't previously marked. But I think, I just like the way it describes what that waiting and hoping might look like. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not thyself. So I think waiting and hoping is not only doing some things, it's not doing some things.
Yeah.
It's not fretting. It's not sitting on your hands doing nothing. Right? I think wait, in the context that we use it so often in other areas of our life, waiting is very passive.
Yeah.
Waiting is to sit still and wait for a thing to happen. But that doesn't seem to be what the scriptures say, and definitely as modern prophets have talked about what it means to wait upon the Lord. It's a very intentional, active, proactive kind of do what's in your control, and while you're not fretting about things that are out of your control. Right? And so somewhere it's that balance of that's what waiting in hope looks like for me. It's moving forward, being very proactive in doing good in the areas that are within my control, and having enough faith to then let go of all the things that I can't control along the way.
I love that, because I think that's where we start to get, because I think one of the questions we have with the Lord's timing is when someone says, well, you need to wait on the Lord, just wait for his timing. That does sort of have this idea of like, all right, give up for now, later on you'll get these blessings.
Yeah.
And that's not what waiting actually looks like.
No, not at all.
Because I love how you put it. Waiting isn't actually a very active thing. And I love, once again, Count of Monte Cristo, the combination of wait and hope combined. And that final sentence of that book has always fascinated me, in large part because in Spanish, the words wait and hope are actually the same word.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Right? Which is a very fascinating thing as I stopped to think about it. Is like, what on earth does wait have to do with hope?
Yeah.
Like how are they the same thing? And I couldn't help but think that if I'm actually waiting on the Lord, if I'm waiting for him, I truly am hoping. If I am no longer hoping, I stop waiting. I stop. The waiting is an act of faith, of, once again, coming back to this promises of the timing of the Lord. All comes back to this idea of, okay, I'm sitting in this place, I'm waiting on the Lord, therefore I still have hope that he's going to show up, and that when he shows up, I will receive all that he has promised me to do.
Yeah.
And sorry, you were going to say something.
I was just thinking back to an earlier conversation of complaining, that I think when you divorce hope from waiting becomes complaining or fretting or stressing, yes, or moaning or more, right? Which is a surefire way to ruin your life.
Right.
And so I just, that's interesting. I love that they're connected, because that's in my life when I have stopped adding hope to my waiting. waiting becomes complaining
And waiting is
or frustration.
Yeah, waiting can be a horrible experience.
Yeah. Oh, see, now I'm thinking of lines at Disneyland, which I know that does not concern you.
Lines at Disneyland are happiness.
Oh, you are such a sick, twisted soul.
It's just because where I am is what it is, and
Okay.
who I'm with.
Yes, and there you go. There you go.
But and part of it is honestly, it's
The hope.
The hope. And if I can be fair, going back to Disneyland, but one of the things that I love about how they operate their lines better, a little bit, it depends on the day, but a line is always easier to stand in if it's moving too.
Yes.
It can be just as long if you're standing still or moving, but if you're moving, it feels like it's not nearly as long.
That's so true. That's so true.
And I think the hope is that's the idea, is when it's moving, you have hope because
Yes.
you're seeing progress, you're seeing this. And so this idea of like, okay, if I'm connecting my faith in God's timing to my faith in him and my hope in that, I will keep moving as though those promises had been fulfilled. Because that I know they will be.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to live my life in that way. I'm no longer fretting and worrying and doing all those and complaining that why haven't I been married yet? Or why haven't I had a kid yet? Or why haven't I gotten this financial blessing yet? I paid my tithing. Why are the windows of heaven still shut? And why versus, oh no, this promise is sure. The line is moving. I'm moving forward. I'm waiting and hoping. And as we've talked about before, like hope is not just like, oh, yay, maybe. It's that sure foundation, that anchor.
It's assurance. It's
Yes.
a confidence. That again, we just had this recent conversation of this confidence that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
When?
When?
Lord's timing.
Right.
Right. As you're saying that, let me add this from Elder Oaks. Gave a talk called Timing. And so I was just looking over that, and I loved, let me read this from Elder Oaks. The commitments and service of adult singles can anchor them through the difficult years of waiting for the right time and the right person. Their commitments and service can also inspire and strengthen others. Wise are those who make this commitment. I will put the Lord first in my life, and I will keep his commandments. The performance of that commitment is within everyone's control. We can fulfill that commitment without regard to what others decide to do, and that commitment will anchor us no matter what timing the Lord directs for the most important events in our lives. Do you see the difference between committing to what you will do in contrast with trying to plan that you will be married by the time you graduate, or that you will earn at least X amount of dollars on your first job? Do not rely on planning every event of your life. That's an interesting, let me say that again, from a general authority, from an apostle, because I think this is just interesting. It's counterintuitive to a lot of the things that we say to all people, but especially these young adults who are at this like really important time in their life making big decisions. Again, going back to Elder Oaks, do not rely on planning every event of your life, even every important event. Stand ready to accept the Lord's planning and the agency of others in matters that inevitably affect you. Plan, of course, but fix your planning on personal commitments that will carry you through no matter what happens. Anchor your life to eternal principles and act upon those principles, whatever the circumstances and whatever the actions of others. Then you can await the Lord's timing and be sure of the outcome in eternity. And I think we hit this a little bit a long time ago. We talked about control, letting go of control. But this comes back to this principle again that I think is just so empowering, that it's okay to think about the future. And it is definitely like very wise to have some sort of game plan. But I love that he focuses on make commitments to how you're going to live your life more than make specific plans on outcomes on when they're going to happen in your life.
Yes.
Because you and I both have felt in our own lives, and we've seen it all the time with young adults currently that we're around, a lot of disappointment and frustration and questions because I think that they have planned events and outcomes, and they're not focusing as much on just commitments that are within their control.
Absolutely. Which I love that. I love that shift of, okay, because I think that's where we get mad at the Lord's timing is it's always about outcomes. It's always about outcomes. And the outcomes aren't going to be completely done until things are completely done. And so as we do this, it puts things back into our control, because that's one of the most horrible things about waiting, is that you feel like it's out of your control when you're waiting. You're in the doctor's office, you're at Disneyland, you're wherever you are, and you're waiting. There's someone else who's in charge of the situation. You're out of control, and you're not there. But it comes back to this idea: I can be in charge of me. I can be in charge of how I respond, of what I'm doing, what I'm learning, where I'm growing. And I love that, because once again, it puts the faith there, and it allows me to move and to act.
Yes.
So that I'm not stuck in this weird thing. So I was actually looking up kind of Monte Cristo, because I'm like, I wonder what it finishes in Spanish, because are you going to hope and hope? Is it the same word? And they actually changed the words. In Spanish, they changed it to wait and act, instead of wait and hope.
Look at all the things you can learn from one line from
I know,
your
right?
favorite book.
It's such a good book. You should all read it.
In English and Spanish.
The movie is garbage. Okay, so now, I know everyone likes it, but if you've read the book, it's not good.
Yes.
Now,
With most cases.
but that idea, but I think there's nothing wrong with that sort of shift of change. It does change it a little bit, but the idea of hope is action.
Yes.
If I have hope, I live differently. Because if I still have hope that God's promises will be fulfilled, I don't give up on keeping my covenants. I don't give up on doing these types of things. I don't lose my faith in him as my hoped for events in my life fall through.
Yes, because, okay, so in that same Elder Oaks article, I started thinking about Kristen Oaks, right? His current wife, which is his second wife.
Yeah.
And let me just read this. So Kristen didn't get married to Elder Oaks until she was almost 53 years old. And this was a couple years after his wife had passed away. And she said this, that she rejoiced during her single years and suffered through them too. Right? We don't have to pull the covers over, the cover over our eyes and pretend like it's not hard to wait for the timing of the Lord. And so I love that she was honest. Like, she rejoiced and suffered through some of that while she was discovering what Heavenly Father wanted for her. She believes Heavenly Father was blessing her with adequate time and experience to build a solid and sure testimony. She says that she's learned from happy and sad experience that the key is being anxiously engaged in good works. She said, don't just wait around for your life situation to change. And that's someone from very real experience. Again, this is only one of so many things, but I think this is a big one on when the Lord's timing comes up, is with family and marriage.
Yeah.
And here's a faithful sister, grown up in the church, wanted to be married her whole life. And at 52, it would have been easier for her for those 30 plus years of prime marriage age to just get frustrated or murmur or complain or to think, where are my promises? And yet instead to say, no, I was anxiously engaged in preparing myself for whenever the right time was for those promises.
Yes.
And that's the key, is I think the acting is, my job is to be prepared for when it is the right time.
Yes.
My job isn't to decide the time. My job isn't to trump other people's agency, because that's another interesting thing. It came up in that quote earlier from Elder Oaks. And I think they're companion principles, but I don't think they're the same thing. I think sometimes the reason something isn't happening or is happening is because it's the Lord's timing. I think there's another companion principle, which is just agency.
Yeah.
It might not be, it's not the Lord's time, but that person still has their agency. And you can't trump that agency, and neither can God, even with his timing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so, again, I think sometimes we pin things on the Lord's timing when maybe in reality it's like, well, no, it's not necessarily that it's not the Lord's timing. It's just involves other people getting to make their choices, and maybe you don't like their choices, but welcome to
life,
mortality.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think there's just so many moving pieces there, but I love this idea, again, going back to, but my job is to put myself in position that I am ready for when the timing is right.
Yes. And I think that's the real key, because unhappiness happens when we force things. When we force things that aren't ready to be done, when we take things into our own hands, where we ignore them. And we see that time and time and time again in the scriptures and throughout life of people who, you're like, oh, okay, no, we're going to make this happen right now. We're going to do this. We're going to, okay, I didn't really like the Lord's answer, Joseph Smith and Martin Harris in the 16
so let's
pages.
Force our timing and our will.
Force our timing and our will. Even, we're going to come follow me here, even, the saints in Missouri in the beginning of we are going to build Zion now, and we're going to do it this way, and it's going to be perfect, and all these yahoos that live in Jackson County, and woo, that does not go super well.
No.
And we force things, and we try to do things, and we do it with our kids, we do it with the people that we love, and we do it with our own lives, and it's that force that really brings absolutely no peace whatsoever. And for me, it brings no peace because it destroys faith. Because when I'm trying to force the answer, when I'm trying to force the outcome that I want, rather than just let things happen while I work and grow, I'm demonstrating a distinct lack of faith in God and his promises. That's one of my favorite quotes from Elder Maxwell, who was a member of the Quorum of the 12 years ago, says this. He says, when we are unduly impatient with an omniscient God's timing, we are really suggesting that we know what is best. Strange, isn't it? We who wear wristwatches seek to counsel him who oversees cosmic clocks and calendars.
I love Elder Maxwell.
I know,
he just says it in a way where you're like going, ouch.
I know, I miss him so
Ouch.
much. It's so beautifully said. And it is, because I do, when I think of that idea of like, no, this is a good thing. This is a good outcome. I want it. It's part of your plan. Give it to me now. What I'm really doing is saying, I don't trust that your promises will be fulfilled later.
And in Abraham 2, I want to say it's verse 9, I think one of the ways the Lord introduces himself is, I am Jehovah, I see the beginning, I see the end from the beginning. Right, so again, as you think about like, that's another thing that allows me, I think, to wait in hope, is not only to focus on promises, but to focus on the one who made the promises. And to just believe that his timing is always going to be better than mine in the grand scheme of things. No matter how much I feel like or think or see that it should be happening the way that I want it, if I can just remember who's making the promise, then I can kind of let go and be like, he just knows better than me.
Yeah. And that is an incredibly freeing thing, because it does take away the burden. Not allowing timing to happen, not allowing the Lord to do his work, and not allowing other people to have their agency is the most frustrating thing in life.
If you let it.
If you let it, it will inevitably frustrate you if you decide to fight it.
Yep. So it sounds like there's these two extremes, and there's this sweet spot in the middle, maybe called waiting upon the Lord, and the extremes seem to be this passive, sitting on my hands, I'm a victim, I'm an object to be acted upon, or the other extreme of forcing it. Trying to overly manipulate things in the way that I want them to be. And both of those seem to be expressions of a lack of faith. Where the sweet spot in the middle is this, no, move forward, anxiously engaged in good causes, but let go of some of the control and just trust God's timing.
Keep your covenants and move forward and trust that, and trust timing. And I think part of that timing and for the blessings that you're seeking, and also if and just because I'm thinking of revenge because of where we started, but this idea of divine justice and that Christ does have the power to balance scales and to do the things that he needs to do, and to take care of all those things that need to be taken care of. All the infuriating unfairnesses, as Elder Renlund would say, are going to be brought into him. And we don't need to fight to take care of it right now in our own lives.
So I started thinking of just a couple of examples in my own life of when I've had to, how I've learned some things about the Lord's timing. I even brought in, this is my very first journal.
I saw you brought your journal today. I was
journal?
excited.
Yeah, I'm going to read to you from the deep things of my journal. Now,
this is amazing.
One of my first entries. So I got this from a girlfriend, actually, that I had before my mission, and thought, okay, I got to start learning how to use these journal things. I'd never written in a journal before, but one of my first entries was the night that I was set apart as a full-time missionary. And I wanted to capture some things that the stake president said. President Waite, an amazing stake president, and it was really interesting because in the blessing, again, there was a lot that I didn't remember, but he started to make this very specific list of promised blessings, and I wanted to capture some of those promises. So that night, I went and wrote them down. Being set apart by President Waite was amazing. It's hard to remember all that he said, but some key points were: 1, use your talents to testify of Christ. 2, you will be a leader, but must also be a good follower. 3, I must be true to the Lord, even if my companion wants to disobey. 4, my love and appreciation of my family will increase immensely. 5, you will be successful with young people. I go on and I write the rest of it. And so I would refer to this like throughout my mission. It was prophetic. I mean, going back to another conversation we just had about the gift of prophecy, using my talents to testify of Christ, having to be obedient to the Lord more than being loyal to a companion. That was a key thing I had to hold on, learning to follow before I had some leadership opportunities, the love and appreciation that I developed for my family and my mission. It was just interesting watching some of these just played out. But the one that honestly bugged me, that's the best word I can use, was the one that you'll be successful with young people.
Yeah.
2 years in Germany. And I talk to different people. I don't know what young means, there are some cute kids that I met on my mission. I got to help, teach a girl who was 19 who got baptized. But I never felt, definitely not in any way that was out of the ordinary, that I had any amazing experiences with young people.
Yeah.
So that caused some questions in my mind. And I kind of thought, did I blow it? Like, did I miss out? Should I have been more focused on reaching out to young people? Or anyway, and so I just didn't know what to do with that for my whole mission. Came home from my mission, forgot about it, got married, started going to school. Fast forward, I've been teaching seminary for, I don't even know how many years. It had been several years. So by that point, I had probably taught hundreds, if not up 1,000 different young men and young women. And I'm going back in my journal, just rereading some things. And I reread the line of, you will be successful with young people. and I have this moment where just the Lord starts to teach me in my mind, why did you put me in a box? Just because it was in your missionary setting apart, do you really think that I couldn't inspire that stake president who had hands on your head? I was inspiring him to share things about you, not just you as missionary, you, but you. And I just thought about how many chances he was giving me to have impact in young people's lives. I mean, there were tears. It was a humbling moment to just. And so one of the things I learned about the Lord's timing was I get boxy. I don't know how else to explain that. I put the Lord in a box based on the way that I view the world. And because that was a missionary setting apart, I thought that promise had to be confined to the 2 years I was on a full-time mission, which now that I think back, that's stupid. Like, that is stupid. That's not how the Lord works. And I just wonder, how many times do I feel like I'm missing out on a blessing because I have put it in a cultural box based on my mortal understanding of how things should go. And so that was just an interesting thing where I had to really open up my mind more to say, wow, God's blessings and timing is different from the way that I see things. And if I can just be okay with that, then maybe there's a lot more room for joy and hope and rejoicing instead of frustration and like, did I miss it?
Yeah. And I think it is bigger than that. And that's the beauty of getting it out of the box, is that to wait on the Lord does not limit you. It expands your ability to grow and to progress. And in some ways, and this is me psychoanalyzing here, in some ways it's sort of nice that you forgot about that after your mission, rather than go throughout your life being like, all right, what am I going to do to make sure that this gets fulfilled? It just, no, I'm keeping my covenants. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to follow the Lord. And he takes you piece by piece, row by row, and takes you to where things happen the way they're supposed to happen.
That's exactly my story. That when I was able to let go of it and just continue to move forward in faith on what I could control, the Lord did all the things that I couldn't control and put me in the right place at the right time.
Right. And I think of a dear sister who's passed on now, who lived in our neighborhood for years. And due to circumstances she had early in her life, she was in a Nazi concentration camp in Europe during World War II, lost her ability to ever carry a child to term and wanted more than anything to be a mother. That woman, when she died, was a mother to thousands of kids that just loved her with all their heart, because she was the neighborhood grandma to every single kid. Show up at their house, you would always get candy, you would get love, you would get anything you needed from her. And that idea of, she didn't fight back, she didn't do hard life, horrible life in many ways, but she instead moved forward and used her love, used her gifts, and did what she needed to do to bless so many other lives and to receive the blessings herself from that life that she lived. And I think so many of us, that's what happens when we wait on the Lord, is that our desires are increased, our abilities are increased, our power is increased, and we end up getting blessings that we couldn't have even possibly imagined. Because if we put them in that box and we're like, no, follow my timing, my rules, the things that I want God to give me are pretty lame in comparison to what He actually has in store for me.
He always has bigger and better. If I can just stay with it in faith, in patience, in hope. He has always dazzled me that it's better than how I would have planned it. Just a second, the experience that came to my mind as I was thinking about it was when I started looking into graduate schools. And there was like these competing things within me where I wanted to do a graduate experience that was like really meaningful, and then there was part of me that wanted to do one that was really easy.
Yeah.
And so I kind of sent out some feelers to different graduate programs and as I read through all of them, all of a sudden I get back one from BYU to a special program they have for seminary teachers and chaplain candidates in religious education, and just reading through the kind of application about the program, I had a spiritual experience where I just thought, that's what I need to do. Yeah. And I didn't necessarily want to do that one. I was living in Beaver at the time. I knew it would be kind of complicated. I knew it would be harder from people I'd talked about in that program. I wanted to do University of Phoenix and get it done in a year
right,
online.
Just be done.
Yeah. But I had this strong feeling that I needed to do that. And so, okay, do the GED, get my transcript sent off. BYU, you got to do this. I had to write like a paper with an essay, and I mean, it was a big process to apply. But like, no, I received confirmation. This is where the Lord wants me. Do all of that? No. We this year only, we have changed our program, and we're only accepting applicants who live on the Wasatch Front. We won't let anyone travel like we've done in years past. What? What do you mean no? Like I know other people down in southern Utah who had traveled, who had completed the program. I had felt this confirmation, this revelation from the Lord. Like no was not the right answer. Like and I was frustrated. I was confused, but I couldn't do anything about it. Like they said no. And so I thought, okay, maybe it's just time to do one of these other programs then. And I couldn't ever get myself to do it. I just never felt right to do one of these others. So I sat, and what felt like in some ways in my mind was like wasted the next 4 or 5 years as all my colleagues are getting their master's degrees and progressing and getting a pay raise and all these things. I'm just like, not. Because I just, in my mind, I'm like, I'm pretty sure it was revelation, and I wanted to hold on to that and be true to that, but I could only do so much. So fast forward, I think it was probably 4 or 5 years later, for whatever reason, I still don't even know at this point, I'm going to apply again just to see what they say. My situation hadn't changed. I was still in Beaver, and I applied. They had a different dean over the program. And basically he said, okay, I've kind of looked this over. If you can make it work with your schedule, we'll make it work with you. And they accepted me. And I'm glad they did. Yeah. Like a lot of what's happened in my life, including being here at the Institute, I think is a result of that program that I was in and some of my interests. But again, so what I had to learn was to just trust in the timing, to not be frustrated because of a roadblock, that because it was revelation, because it doesn't mean that it wasn't right. Just because things don't work out the way that my little mortal brain, once I get revelation from God, I want to like lay out all the path and be like, oh, because I felt that this is right, then it should look like this, and this. And so again, I've just had to learn that I can get revelation, and it can be a right thing, and it can be the right path, but chances are that path isn't going to look the way that I want. Yeah. And so again, I just needed to trust the Lord's timing, move forward, and He opened up doors in ways that I never could have forced those doors open.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Yeah. And I think everyone, if they're going to be honest, if they're exercising faith, has experiences like that, whether it's that or something bigger, where I think we come back to this idea of trusting, or the Lord's timing comes back to your first statement. It's just another way of saying Lord's will, of just how things work. And I think for me, coming back to one of our earlier episodes on control and on can I ruin God's plan, is this idea of there is so much bigger things afoot than usually the little outcomes. And I mean little outcomes for big things that feel really big to us right here, of that God can take anything and work anything and make it good for us as we go. You know, you share that experience. I couldn't help but think of my own experience, which is sort of the complete opposite of of where the Lord made it very clear to me that I needed to come over to seminary, partway through my career. And I had a number of conversations with the Lord on a number of occasions about, couldn't I have, I don't know, got this revelation when I was at BYU, before I went to law school. We had to wait, right?
I had to go do the whole law degree thing.
Student loans are a thing. So, just saying. But they're like, why not? And at the same time, when I have that conversation and I'm crabby about it, there is nothing good that comes from it. It's a fight. It's me fighting against what the Lord can do. When it's not, it is an opportunity for me to sit back and think, do I regret going? No, I don't regret going to law school for 1 second. The education was top notch. It was an incredible way to learn how to read, to learn how to analyze, to learn how to study. The people I met, the experiences I had practicing law, the experiences I still have using the degree and my other teaching and things like that. Like, I can't quantify any of that, but I'm willing to throw it all away every single time I decide to confront God about it. And I think for me, that's one of the saddest things about making God's timing an issue, is what it does is it destroys my faith in every other thing. If I'm mad about the fact that it's not happening right now, it means that I'm not trusting that he can make it all better, or not trusting that I can't have anything good coming from my life right now unless I get this one thing. And that's a really sad place to be in. And I know because I've been in that place, and it's not a very happy place to be in. But that idea of God's timing really is, for me, a real key to me being able to really open up my heart to full faith in him and full faith in what he can do with my life at any time and at any point. And it opens up my whole life to be so much happier, so much brighter, so much more full of hope. Because as I'm waiting on him, then I can act and do the things I need to do without worry for the future.
That's good. That's good. I like it. Okay, did we leave anything unsaid that you wanted to share?
Oh, I would just say one other thing that came to mind, and it's from the Sermon on the Mount, right? Think not I'm destroy the Savior's words, so we better go there.
Let Jesus speak.
Yes.
Don't paraphrase Jesus.
Thank you. It's one of my other many sins. Okay, so, but end of Matthew 6, right? This idea of take therefore no thought for the morrow shall take thought for the things of itself. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. As someone who is a fly by the seat of his pants type of person, I love that verse. The planners hate that verse, but I think it's so much more than just, hey, just fly by the seat of your pants.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what he's saying. What he's saying is this: it's just stop putting constraints on what and when I can do it. Let life go and live life every single day.
Yeah.
And life is better when you wait and hope.
That's really good. One more, Elder Maxwell. Elder Maxwell said we need to be willing to watch the unfolding purposes of God with a sense of wonder and awe, rather than pacing up and down within the cell of our circumstance.
It's glorious.
That's how I want to live my life. I want to watch God's timing and his purposes and his miracles in my life unfold with wonder and awe, not stewing around impatiently fretting about why it's not happening when I want it to happen.
I love it.
Yeah, I think that's the gospel.
I love it.
Thanks for the chat.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you next time.